In today's episode, my ex lied to me about being divorced, so I ruined his reputation, marriage, and job in one blow. Refused to pay $60 to fix my roof. Okay, I'll close your building site down and cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. IT manager leaves business and does his own right to be forgotten. So let's get started. My ex lied to me about being divorced, so I ruined his reputation, marriage, and job in one blow. Okay, this is gonna be a long story, so bear with me. When I was a naive 24-year-old, met a charming and very smart and way older man. We call him Jake for the story. His sister is Dana and I'm Gina. Now to the story. Jake was 42, recently divorced, or so he told me, and got a kid that he would see the weekends. We meet online through a poetry website where both of us used to write. He was very aloof and stern on his comments and not very popular on the website because he used to always come off like an arrogant prick, but I really liked his poems regardless of his personality, and that's how it began. I commented on one and he instantly PM'd back praising my writing and asked me if we could collaborate on a duet together. I've already done it 1,000 times with a few friends and people on the site that I respected, so I said sure. So long story short, we met on Hotmail Messenger. This was nearly 11 years ago, kids, so no WhatsApp, although we did chat on FB too. This will come relevant later. Long story short, we instantly connected. He was funny, handsome, and really sweet underneath all his bravado. And his dark sense of humor was right up my alley. We spent months pulling all-nighters just talking and writing together. Not humble bragging, but I was pretty popular on the site because I won a few awards, so, by association, he became popular too. People started to reading Jake's poems and commented, and obviously he got a huge head about it, but I digress. Our relationship became more serious after he confessed that he was falling for me and I was smitten. So I went along with it. We talked about my recent breakup, and he assured me that he would never lie to me because of course he used that, which of his ex-wife cheat on him, and he was devastated until he met me. I was shocked for how bad her ex was, but assured him that I was all in. And I meant that. One important detail about our turbulent romance is that he was in South America, he's from there, and I was still living in Italy, in my hometown. So, after almost 2 years of excuses for how tied up on work he was, I decided to surprise him with a visit. I bought my ticket, and it literally was like a dream. He picked me up, we kiss, hug, and he took me to his beach house, which would have been my first red flag, but I was dumb, young, and in love. Saying that it would be so much easier and fun for me doing touristy stuff on a beach port than staying in his suburbs house with no car. Because I told him in such a short notice that he didn't have the time nor the means to take time off, which again blatant lie because he was one of the partners of the company, but again, I bought it, and off I went on my own almost for the entire week that I was there. He only spent one night with me and the rest of the week just picked me up from whatever it was that I ended up wandering, and we hang out for a few hours, have sex, and then he just drops me off on the house. I know that most of you are thinking, come on OP, just get your head out off your arse and realize what a bunch of BS that is. And believe me, now writing this I realized how much of an idiot I was. But it gets better. The day before I have to get back to Italy, he took me to dinner. With his 6-year-old son and his sister. I was super happy to meet his family and son, but got caught off guard when he just introduced me as his friend from Italy dropping on town for tourist. Her sister was super sweet, albeit a bit awkward, and his son was adorable. We ate, talked, and off we went. He picked me up first thing in the morning and dropped me off in the airport. Now that you got the full story, I'll get to the good part. 2 days later, and still a bit jet-lagged, I got a very interesting email. From his sister Dana. Her email was short and very simple. Dear Gina, I know that you might think I was weird and maybe a bit rude when we met, but it was only because I was tricked by Jay to join the dinner with his kid. He never mentioned that you guys were dating, but after confronting Jake, he confessed and begged not to tell anyone or his marriage will be ruined. But you're such a sweet and young girl that doesn't deserve his deceive. Jake is still married and never left their home. Don't take just my word for it. And Dana sent me pictures of his real FB profile and surprise. The perfect little family. I thanked her and shut down my computer. I was devastated. I really thought Jake was the love of my life and was seriously considering moving there. I spent all night crying and drinking wine until I get myself the worst migraine. But the heartbreak lasted about 12 hours. At 4 a.m. I got up, shower, make a pot of fresh coffee, and started planning my revenge. I was hurt, yes, but also so angry that he not only deceived me, but dragged his sister and his innocent child in his lie. I was at the other side of the world, and I didn't have the money to pay someone to kick his arse or egg his car. But as my Sicilian father would said to me, if someone slaps you, don't turn the other cheek, cut off their F***ing hand. And so I did. Cue my sweet revenge. I sat down on my desk and turned on the computer and log in his Hotmail. I didn't have the password, but I knew him well enough to answer his 3 security questions on the section forgot password. 1, 2, 3 bum baby. I'm in and holy shit. This arrogant piece of human crap was not only dating me, but other 2 girls. I quickly logged onto his FB too because he had everything linked, the naivety, so I quickly changed all his passwords to, I'm a prick, and discovered that his personal email was also connected to his work account. I dug through his emails for 2 hours. This idiot never erased anything, so he had more than 5,000 emails. Until I found something very interesting, the girls he was also seeing and their very hot email exchanges. Dick pics included. So what did I do? You guessed. I crafted a very lengthy and explicit email with pics and chat logs attached confessing to Jake's wife, posting as him obviously, begging for forgiveness and declaring how much of shit person I was, and as a proof of my willingness to change and transparency was sending this email to the girls too. But that I did it only because I was a closeted gay and thought that being a player would help me forget how much I really loved guys. That I was sick of pretending and hoped she could move on and maybe be friends. But not only to them, King copied his entire list of contacts, including the CEO and partners of the company he worked, his parents, and D of course. This email was perfection. All the pictures and chats, myself included, he ever exchanged with any other women. I copied myself on the list obviously as a countermeasure and move on to the part 2 of my plan. I changed all of his FB and declaring that I was so relieved that people finally knew who was I. The pride flag was his new wall picture and his profile picture was a photoshopped picture of 2 guys kissing. I created 5 different accounts on gay websites with all his info, included his phone number, and started to chat with a bunch of guys until out of nowhere, this guy sent me, oh better yet, he sent Jake a message. Tony was his old uni friend that had always been secretly lusting for him for years, and although I felt bad for this later, I set up a date. Part 3 of my plan. A week after this massive internet blowout and his family and friends angrily calling him all sorts of names, and getting fired because his bosses didn't want the bad press. So Jake, trying to make amends with his family and friends, make a barbecue for his birthday. But I would have paid 1 year worth of salary just to see his face and his guests when in the middle of their celebration, Tony appeared with a bottle of champagne and a bag full of lube and sex toys to celebrate privately as I asked. Apparently there was a huge fight and everyone left Jake, flustered and angry. Crying because some psycho wanted to ruin his life. I blocked him and forgot about everything until 6 months ago when he out of the blue sent me a message on Instagram asking me why I disappear and didn't support him when he was on his lowest. And oh boy, the satisfaction I felt when I only replied back, sorry Jake, but I think everything you got was karma for all the lies and time wasted you feed me. Good luck. Oh, and by the way, it was always me. I then blocked him and made my account private. Jake tried to call a few mutual friends to try to get them to give him my number, but they ignore him. They also got the infamous email. So yeah. I got my revenge, and I was with every single hour. I know. I'm effing petty. Refused to pay $60 to fix my roof. Okay, I'll close your building site down and cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. Names, places and timeframes have been changed as per rules. Characters in this story. My friend, who I will call Brian, bullying demolition man we will call Keith, greedy property developer we will call Karen, and the insurance assessor. This tale of this nuclear revenge happened a while back and is a work in progress. It is too good not to tell, and I will try and keep you updated down the track. Brian's neighbor is a typical greedy career landlord that left their rental house in disrepair. The poor tenant was living in the cold house, raw sewerage leaking onto the lawn and holes in the house that you could see light coming out of the house. After multiple requests from Brian, Karen refused to get any repairs done. When the state government introduced new laws about ensuring landlords are insulating their rental properties, instead doing this to the house, Karen kicked their tenant out and left the house vacant for 5 years. The old house deteriorated so much more during this time, with rats infesting the house and invading other houses nearby. Brian and his wife with their limited funds were able to get sufficient lending from the bank and offered to buy the house and do it up themselves to improve the neighborhood or rent it out, as there is a massive shortage of rental properties in our local county. Greedy Karen did not want to sell, nor did she want to spend a cent on the house to remedy the rodent problem. She also did not care about the effect the house was having on aesthetics of the street. It is important to know that Karen and her wealthy family have over 100 rental properties, and due to lax tax laws in this region, they do not pay a cent and can get tax write-offs when their properties deteriorate, then can claim on this as a loss. Long story short, some of them appear to be leeches on our society and are one of the reasons property prices are so high and rent prices are skyrocketing in our area. Her husband is also the chairman of the state's Landlords Association, an association that he often fronts the media for, defending landlords and putting a good media spin on them when there is negative press. Fast forward 5 years and Brian finds out the house is going to be demolished to make way for some new houses to go in on the small section. That's good news at least, though Brian and his wife were anxious about how smoothly the demolition would go due to the fact the houses are quite close to each other. This is important for later. Prior to demolition, the company doing it had to get samples from all sides of the house to check for asbestos. Either Karen made it difficult for the company to get down the side bordering Brian's house, or they simply were too lazy, but only samples from 3 sides, not 4, were taken. Demolition day came around and Brian was concerned that no safety barriers had been put up to protect his house from falling bricks of the chimney, nor was there anything from stopping dust and debris going all over his new deck and porch area. Later that day, Brian had the pleasure of meeting Keith. Keith is the demolition company manager that is well known around the district for only caring about money and has little regard for people or property. Keith was doing the demolition himself today simply with a digger. Brian returned home during his break at work to check the progress of the demolition and found the demolition was already complete. After only an hour or so, the demolished house was in a pile. He climbed up on his roof and to his disbelief found hundreds of bricks had fallen onto his roof, causing damage, though he was lucky none had fallen through into the house. Brian phoned up demolition man Keith to ask about what went wrong. Keith initially played down the damage, despite there being 200 bricks laying on Brian's roof. Even with the damage done, no apology, and the rude attitude of Keith, Brian kept his cool. "Since I did a little bit of roofing when I was younger, I can fix up the roof if you just get me 4 new sheets of roofing iron, and we will call it even. Don't worry about paying for paint, I can sort that out when I paint the whole roof after the fall." Brian's roof was not in the best of shape, but it was in much worse shape after having bricks dumped on it, leaving massive dents and chipping the paint. This is the moment that a simple decision on Keith's part would screw him and the landlord big time. "Not happening, pal, your roof is F***ked anyway. I'll get you a sheet of second-hand roofing iron from my yard to repair the damage on roof, and I can come and hose off the dust off your deck and dog kennel." Cue the nuclear revenge. The revenge was not intentionally nuclear, but Brian had a dilemma that his roof was damaged and he needed it repaired. There was rain and snow forecast later in the week, and he shouldn't be out of pocket having to buy new materials to fix his own roof up to a good standard. Brian is normally calm and relaxed man, but this situation and the way he and his property were treated sparked an angst that I have never seen before. Brian got in contact with his insurance company, and due to the issue involving a roof, a building assessor arrived that day to assess the claim. The assessor would then be able to seek damages from the landlord or demolition company if he found them to be at fault. Brian also reported the demolition company to the local health and safety authorities due to their lack of safety precautions used when doing the demolition. The assessor got onto the roof with Brian and was mortified to hear how Keith had acted in such disregard with the damage done to the roof, and his lack of an apology for any wrongdoing got the assessor mad. He then looked more concerned and bent down and picked up some gray fibrous material. Luckily, thanks to COVID, we already have masks on Brian. This here looks like it is asbestos. I don't know how they got the sign off to get this house knocked down in this manner. You don't know at the time of being exposed to this stuff, but if you breathe in these fibers it can cause serious diseases later on in life, including lung cancer. I'll get this sent off to the lab for testing and we'll be in touch. Fast forward another day and Brian was contacted by his insurance company. It turns out the side of the house that wasn't tested was clad in asbestos. Not just any bad asbestos, the worst possible type you can get. Insurance will be seeking damages to replace Brian's whole roof, not just the damaged part. The cost of replacement is likely to be around $20,000 USD. This is the cheap part. The demolition site has been shut down by local authorities, and there needs to be a massive decontamination of the area. This involves having to remove at least half a meter of topsoil on surrounding properties, test the soil, and remove more if there is asbestos still found. Areas with decks need to potentially have these removed so soil can be evacuated out underneath. The cost for this cleanup will likely be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, but who will pay for this is unknown at this stage. Whether it is Keith or Karen's insurance or them personally, time will tell. In regards to Brian, his family and their dog potentially being exposed to the asbestos, that is another battle for them to fight, and I will keep you updated. Update 1. I have just been on the phone to Brian for half an hour. His workplace were very sympathetic and paid for him to have 2 days off trying to sort things out. This is in complete contrast to Karen and Keith, who are yet to apologize and have made life difficult for Brian and his family. Due to the neighboring property being closed off for entry due to the health and safety investigation going on, it means Brian cannot even get scaffolding on his roof yet to fix the roof. Brian is worried now that the landlord is going to try make his life hell. She is also a lawyer apparently. Karen was the person that offered the old roofing iron, apparently not Keith. She spoke to her husband, who said that because the bricks dented the roof it means it must have been rusty and old, so doesn't need new iron put on. Keith did however go nuts at Brian for getting insurance involved, and also the health and safety investigation unit who are currently doing the investigation. In regards to Brian and family still living in the house, according to the investigator, the risk is negligible and the problems will arise when the debris are removed from the section. This will require a large tent etc. However, the wind has been strong last few days, and I feel risk is still high living next door to uncovered broken asbestos cladding that is not being kept damp. Brian asked the investigation office person by phone about what to do about his dog and if they needed vet checkup etc. They were 1 m away from the fence, which is about a foot from the asbestos, when it was broken up. They responded saying, "Do you think your dog will live more than 20 years? If not, I probably wouldn't worry." Brian is also thinking the landlord is probably scheming revenge of her own. Brian paid for a new fence himself a few years back to border Karen's rental, as when he moved in the old fence was half falling down, she refused to pay half despite this being law. He reckons because the fence is approximate 10 centimeters too high, she will ask him to cut the height down at his own cost so it is in perfect position for her new houses that are to be built. Brian's plan is that he will pull the nice expensive fence down entirely and put 600mm high chicken wire mesh up, as this is all that is required by law, and there is nothing she can do about it legally, as he paid for and built the fence. I will continue to keep you all updated. Also, as I know the local newspaper editor, I have offered to go with Brian to discuss this story with them once the investigation is completed if Karen tries to make life difficult and also expose Keith for his dirty practices. Keith's company have just been awarded a multi-million-dollar contract for demolition of an old car factory, and this would raise some eyebrows. Update 2: a very small update, but not great news. I feel this story, as many have suggested, will not conclude in a warm fuzzy feeling of ultimate revenge as things progress. Firstly, Brian informed me a fence has gone up around the exposed parts of neighboring property. This is only to stop people from public going over to debris pile and scavenging etc., then exposing themselves to the broken asbestos cladding. Brian also needed to take 2 full days off work when this happened to try sort out all the situation and reduce stress on his wife, talking with all parties involved. So he was down 2 days' wages coming up to Christmas, but his kind boss has paid him special leave for taking them off. The insurance company, after further clarification, will be only paying out for 1/4 of roof and flashings. Brian will have to find funds to pay for the rest. This section of roof is, however, the most expensive, as it encompasses a large complex parapet, gutter, roofing iron and flashings. Cost? $8,000 USD/120 kZAR. I hope I can provide something more substantial in a later update when there has been more action. Update 3: January 9, 2021. Wish this update was actually something to update you on, but alas, it is merely to say due to the Christmas break etc. nothing has progressed. Brian cannot get his roof fixed until the area beside his house is decontaminated so the scaffolding can then go up. Update 4: March 20, 2021. Another downer of an update. Brian is being paid $8,000 towards his roof. The landlord/contractor got away with not needing a huge area cleanup and convinced local authorities that the building site would be sufficient for decontamination, as the testers could not find samples over the fences of surrounding houses. All topsoil on old section was removed and replaced. A new house has been quickly built by landlord's builder. The house looks as cheap as they come. A kit-set house and looks out of place. Sort of like a house you could load onto a truck and move if needed in future. Brian still hasn't had his roof fixed yet, as he needs to save money to afford to pay for whole roof. Update 5: April 13, 2021. Wow. Brian tells me the demolition company are taking his insurance company to court on the amount they have to pay for roof. IT manager leaves business and does his own right to be forgotten. My friend we shall call Steve worked for a company for over 10 years as their IT manager, in charge of the whole system. He had worked his way up from lowly desktop support right to the very top. He was also very into doing everything by the book and within the law. No underhanded shenanigans. The company had recently gone public, shares listed on the stock exchange, and as such needed a director of IT. Steve applied, and was pretty much a shoo-in until he was told the new CEO, the original owner, who was pretty much forced to go public by the other 2 shareholders, had taken his shares and sold them and moved on, had overruled HR and hired someone else, spoiler nepotism, and he shrugged and said, well, at least they will take away most of my paperwork, allowing me to do more work. Oh, how wrong he was. When the new IT director arrived, let's call him Tom, he basically kicked Steve out of his office and into a desk in the main office and did nothing except piss about. Steve found out it was the CEO's nephew who he doted on. Fast forward 3 months and Steve is pretty much burned out. The nephew had fired his 2 very capable assistants and replaced them with buddies who did nothing, leaving Steve to look after around 400 PCs plus associated servers and network equipment all by himself. He was getting fed up. All the while the Tom kept ordering him to do weird things like reinstall Windows all on PCs or order him a gaming rig for the office. In one case, go to his house to set up a home network. The final straw came when Tom had got the CEO to cancel Steve's bonus for not meeting all requests made of him. Meanwhile, buddies, Dick and Harry, got massive bonuses and rewards for their hard work picking up the slack. Steve decided at this point to start looking for a new role. It just so happened he had kept in touch with the old owner, who had started a new business, and after hearing of his woes had offered him a new job at his much smaller company of the same wage. It was also a much shorter commute, and he got a whole new office and nice set of benefits. Steve of course took the offer up, but also decided to plot his revenge. Steve handed in his 3-month notice to the HR department and began his leaving process, sending emails to the Tom detailing all passwords and processes plus introducing him to suppliers and whatnot. He also put on the Exchange server a scheduled task to run a batch file 1 week after he left. He also had one of these on the AD server and file storage servers, and the backup storage servers. What this batch file did was open PowerShell and run commands to delete anything he was the author of, if a file, or was last saved by him. And also to delete any emails sent to him or by him. He also told Microsoft he was leaving this company and moving on to a new company on the specified date. More on this later. Steve dutifully carried out his final tasks, said goodbye, and as he last act a week before he left, he gave HR a typed-up letter stating his wish to invoke the GDPR RTBF regulations, and he wants all paperwork he created deleted, and the only information left for legal purposes and HR reasons, i.e. payslips etc. On his final day he signed out, handed his laptop in, and left graciously. Even buying people drinks that evening at the local pub near the company. He was told by HR his request was completed the following week, but they had to retain certain info. HR docs and payslips for tax reasons, which was fine. Fast forward 2 months. His old CEO rings him up in a panic as things are falling apart. Updates haven't been happening, he can't find any details for suppliers or how to do certain roles. He also had a huge bill from finance as all their licensing costs have gone through the roof. New staff kit is all wrong. Steve kindly explains that he was fed up with Tom doing nothing and hiring his buddies, Dick and Harry, who also did nothing, or worse made rookie mistakes he was left to fix. He also explained how the cheap license costs were because as Steve had a lot of qualifications from Microsoft he got discounts on products. Now, he has left, they can't receive them, as he is using that privilege at his new place. He also explained the RTBF, right to be forgotten, request, saying it director had 3 months to save the info he emailed before it was deleted. CEO then begged him to allow access to the discounts, but Steve said no, he doesn't do stuff like that. Perhaps he should get Tom, Dick and Harry trained up? He also said maybe instead of hiring your nephew to do a director's role, maybe he should have been hired at the bottom to work his way up, not fail his way down. Steve hung up and has asked kindly not to be contacted again via email through HR. The new job is going great and Steve is enjoying it a lot. From what I hear. Lesson of the story: don't commit nepotism or hire buddies and expect good results. FYI, names have been changed to protect identities. I also don't know the name of the CEO, so I'm leaving his name as such. Thanks for watching.